I caught my wife with another man. Then she tried to take everything from me. I never imagined my life would spiral into such chaos. For years, I thought my marriage was solid, steady enough to withstand the usual ups and downs. But then everything cracked wide open. It started with small signs, her growing distance, vague excuses, and late nights at work. I brushed it off, convincing myself it was stress or something temporary. I was wrong. One evening, I came home early. The house was too quiet. Then I saw them, her and another man. The shock hit me like a punch to the gut. I stood frozen, unable to move or speak. Everything I believed in, everything I built my life around, shattered in an instant. She didn't try to hide it. Instead, she seemed almost unapologetic, like it was a right she was entitled to. I left the house that night, heart pounding, mind racing. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever imagined possible. But what hurt most wasn't just the affair. It was the realization that she was planning to take everything from me. Soon after, she filed for divorce and demanded half of all our assets. Our savings, the house, the car. I was blindsided. How could someone betray you so completely and then try to destroy you financially on top of that? But I refused to go down without a fight. I wasn't just going to lose my wife. I was going to lose my home, my dignity, my future. I started gathering evidence, documenting everything. I knew the courts could be merciless, but so was I. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about justice, about making sure she didn't get away with ruining my life. I was ready to fight, no matter how long it took. The weeks after the discovery were a blur of sleepless nights and endless worry. I felt like I was sinking in quicksand. Every time I thought I could catch my breath, something pulled me deeper. The emotional weight was crushing, but I forced myself to stay focused. There was no room for weakness now. I started meeting with lawyers, trying to understand my options. The more I learned, the clearer it became. If I didn't act smart and fast, she could walk away with everything we had worked for. But I also realized that this wasn't just a legal battle. It was a war of wills. I carefully documented her infidelity and her attempts to hide assets. It wasn't easy. She was slick, moving money around, trying to make it look like she had less than she actually did. But I was relentless, hiring private investigators, digging through bank statements, and gathering proof piece by piece. Every discovery fueled my anger, but also sharpened my resolve. I kept telling myself, this isn't just about revenge. It's about protecting what's mine. It's about reclaiming control over my life. I was tired of feeling powerless, and I refused to be a victim. But it wasn't just the legal and financial side that wore me down. The emotional scars ran deep. The betrayal, the lies, it made me question everything. Who was she really? How'd I miss the signs? I often caught myself staring into the void, trying to make sense of it all. Some nights, I felt completely lost. I wondered if I would ever trust anyone again. But even in my darkest moments, I held on to a flicker of hope. I wasn't going to let this break me. Not completely. I made a silent promise to myself. Whatever happened, I would come out stronger. The court dates started piling up, and with each session, the tension thickened. I sat through long hearings, watching her weave stories, trying to paint me as cold and uncaring, as if I was the villain in this nightmare. But I had my own truth, hard evidence, clear facts, and I refused to let the narrative be twisted. What surprised me most was how draining the process was. It wasn't just about money or property anymore. It felt like my entire life was on trial. I relived every painful moment in my head, the betrayal, the sleepless nights, the moments when I felt utterly alone. But beneath the exhaustion was a growing fire inside me. Each time she tried to manipulate the situation, I responded with facts and documents. I became meticulous, preparing for every question, anticipating every move. My lawyer and I worked as a team, strategizing the best way to expose her true intentions. I also realized how important it was to stay calm and composed in court, even when my emotions begged to explode. I learned to channel my pain into quiet strength, letting my evidence speak louder than words. Outside the courtroom, I started rebuilding myself. I took up running to clear my mind, and slowly, I found small moments of peace. The support of close friends helped, even though I was reluctant to share the full story. I knew the fight wasn't over. The stakes were high, and I had no illusions about how hard it would be to win. But something inside me had shifted. I was no longer just reacting to the situation. I was taking control, shaping my own fate. This was my chance to rise from the ashes and prove that betrayal wouldn't define me. Days blurred into weeks, and the emotional toll started to weigh heavily on me. Some mornings I woke up feeling numb, as if my heart had hardened just to survive. The constant battle over our shared assets and the painful memories of betrayal left me exhausted. Yet, giving up was never an option. One thing I discovered during this time was how isolating such a fight could be. Friends tried to comfort me, but few truly understood the complexity of what I was going through. People see a divorce as a simple breakup, but this was something far more brutal. It wasn't just about ending a marriage. It was about reclaiming my life from someone I once trusted completely. I began to pour my energy into something constructive, documenting every interaction, every suspicious move she made. I wasn't just fighting for my possessions. I was fighting for my dignity. I didn't want to be the man left broken and penniless because of someone else's greed. There were moments when despair tried to creep in. I caught myself asking, will this ever end? Will I ever feel whole again? But then, I reminded myself of the man I was before all this. Strong, capable, deserving of respect. I needed to reconnect with that person. So I made small changes. I started waking up earlier, focusing on my health, and setting new goals beyond the courtroom. Slowly, I felt the grip of despair loosening. I was not just surviving, I was preparing to thrive again. This fight was hard, but it was also teaching me something invaluable: resilience. No matter how dark the path, I could still choose to walk it with my head held high. As the court battles dragged on, I noticed a change in her tactics. The confident, almost arrogant woman who once tried to intimidate me was now visibly unsettled. Maybe she realized that I wasn't an easy target after all. I could see it in her eyes during hearings, uncertainty creeping in. This shift gave me a strange mix of satisfaction and relief. I was no longer the one on the defensive. Slowly, I began to take control of the situation in ways I hadn't imagined possible. My evidence was solid, my lawyer was sharp, and my resolve unshaken. Yet, the journey was far from over. The court required patience, a virtue I didn't have in abundance. I often found myself replaying everything in my mind, wondering if I had missed something, if there was a better way to approach the case. The stress was constant, but I learned to live with it, to let it fuel me instead of breaking me down. More importantly, I started thinking beyond the courtrooms. What would life look like after this ordeal? Could I find happiness again? Trust again? I didn't have all the answers, but I was beginning to imagine a future where I wasn't defined by betrayal or loss. Sometimes I even caught myself smiling at the thought of freedom. Freedom from the lies, the fights, the uncertainty. It was a fragile hope, but it was enough to keep me going. This battle was about more than property or revenge now. It was about reclaiming my life, rebuilding my identity, and proving to myself that I was stronger than the pain. The final court day arrived with a strange mix of anxiety and calm. After months of fighting, the moment of truth was here. Sitting in that courtroom, I felt the weight of everything: the betrayal, the sleepless nights, the relentless stress pressing down on me. But I also felt a quiet confidence I hadn't known before. When the judge announced the verdict, I listened intently. The court recognized the evidence I had painstakingly gathered, the proof of her infidelity and the hidden assets she tried to conceal. The judge ruled in my favor. She would receive only a small portion, nothing close to what she demanded. I was granted full rights to the house and the majority of the savings. Hearing those words was surreal. Relief washed over me. But beneath it was something deeper, a sense of justice, of closure. It wasn't just about winning. It was about reclaiming my life and dignity. Walking out of the courtroom, I felt lighter, like I was shedding a heavy cloak I had been forced to wear for too long. But I also knew this wasn't the end of my journey. Healing would take time, and the scars, both emotional and mental, would remain. Still, I was determined to move forward, to rebuild, to forgive, not her but myself, to let go of the bitterness and focus on the future I wanted to create. This experience taught me harsh truths about trust, resilience, and the power of standing up for yourself when everything feels lost. I didn't just survive the storm. I emerged stronger because of it. Update 1. Months have passed since the court's decision, but the aftermath of that battle still echoes in my life. Winning the case brought a sense of justice, but it didn't erase the emotional wounds overnight. Some days, the pain feels fresh, like it never really left me. However, I've learned to channel that pain into something constructive. I threw myself into work, rediscovered old hobbies, and focused on rebuilding my social life. I reconnected with people I'd lost touch with, and for the first time in a long time, I felt supported, not just legally, but emotionally. One of the hardest lessons I had to learn was forgiveness, not for her, but for myself. I had to forgive my own naivety and vulnerability to stop blaming myself for what happened. That was the first step toward healing. The property dispute is finally behind me, but the personal growth that followed is just beginning. I've started setting new goals, both personal and professional, and I feel more confident in my ability to face life's challenges. This experience has shaped me in ways I never expected. It stripped me down to my core and forced me to confront my fears and weaknesses. But in doing so, it also revealed a resilience I didn't know I had. Though the scars remain, they remind me not of defeat, but of survival, and of the strength it takes to rebuild when everything falls apart. Update 2. Time has a way of softening even the sharpest wounds, and with it came clarity I hadn't seen before. Looking back, I realized that this ordeal wasn't just about property or betrayal. It was about rediscovering who I am when stripped of all illusions. The revenge I once craved slowly transformed into something more meaningful, reclaiming my peace. I stopped obsessing over the past and began focusing on the present and future. I even found the strength to let go of anger, understanding that holding on to it would only chain me to that dark chapter. Interestingly, the court victory gave me more than just financial security. It gave me confidence. Confidence to set boundaries, to trust cautiously, and to value myself more deeply. I became more selective about who I let into my life, surrounding myself with people who truly care. In some strange way, I'm grateful for the pain because it pushed me to grow. I'm no longer the man who walked into that house years ago, naive and trusting. I'm stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The future is still unwritten, but now I face it with open eyes and an open heart. Whatever comes next, I know I can handle it. This story isn't just about revenge or loss. It's about rebirth. Update 3. Life after the court battle wasn't a neat, clean victory as I'd once imagined. There were moments of loneliness and doubt, times when the silence in my apartment screamed louder than any argument ever had. But gradually, those moments became opportunities for reflection and growth. I started focusing on what truly mattered, my well-being, my ambitions, and the relationships that brought genuine joy. The bitterness that once consumed me gave way to a quieter strength. I learned that winning in court meant little if I lost myself in the process. With the financial freedom I reclaimed, I invested in things that uplifted me, traveling to places I'd always dreamed of, pursuing courses to advance my career, and rediscovering passions I'd neglected. Each step was a reminder that my life was still mine to shape. I also became more aware of the importance of self-care, both physical and mental. Therapy helped me unpack the layers of betrayal and rebuild trust in myself. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Looking back, I'm proud of how far I've come. The journey wasn't just about revenge or court battles. It was about reclaiming my identity, learning resilience, and finding peace within the chaos. This chapter is closed, but the story of my life is still unfolding, and this time on my own terms.